Hello, guys. Hi, how are you?
Even Mr. McKenzie, quick question before you get into the lesson. Last week when we had class, I remember you stating that we should focus on the group project that is due next week, right? However, Chantel did highlight that we had a written paper that's due today. Are we still getting that leniency until the end of the month, or what are we doing? Because myself is quite confused, and I'm sure my fellow colleagues want to just have an idea what we're doing.
Um, do you need an extension until the end of the month?
Yes, sir. That is what we would have voiced last week. So we would be great. We would be grateful if you'd be able to extend that to us.
Okay, fine. You will have the extension. However, we will start the presentation. The group presentation will begin next week.
Yes, sir. We are aware. Thank you.
All right. And to be honest, I was speaking for 10 minutes, but my mic was muted the entire time. So you would not have heard anything I had said. I was actually speaking for 10 minutes. Hi, guys. Welcome to Caribbean Thought. How are you guys?
Okay, sir.
What I was gonna do a lecture today talking about post-colonialism. I won't be able to do it. We'll do it another time. But there's something else I had planned for
The
you.
audio is back.
Sir,
You're
it's
sounding
back.
better
It's back,
now.
sir. It's
The
back.
audio is back.
It's back.
Oh, so you can hear me now?
Yes, very
Perfectly
clearly.
clear now. Yes.
Just as though you're hearing us.
This is crazy. All right, guys.
Stick, you know?
Huh?
Or the mystic, you have to just work with it.
You have to work with it. All right, guys. No, this threw me off completely. I was making the point about colonialism last week. And when you look at the issue of colonization, I wanted you to, if you watched the video last week, I made the point that I dubbed the topic colonization as strategy. Colonization as strategy. And that's what colonization is. Colonization is a is a mechanism to control, to exert control. Colonization or colonialism cannot just be considered a period between the 1500s and just before, and just so you think, colonization long existed before the 1500s. But a kind of colonization that gave rise to the Caribbean, because we are in the Caribbean, and the Caribbean was colonized by Europe starting from the 1400s when Christopher Columbus came to the Caribbean. And when you ask what is the Caribbean, we say the Caribbean is an invention. If you were to read the Caribbean Reader, which is in your syllabus, which is the main text, you should read the preface and read the introduction chapter, where Ivan Gervin and Ian Meeks talk about the Caribbean being an invention. Many other people disagree with me. Do you believe the Caribbean is an invention? And if I were to ask you, is the Caribbean an invention? The Caribbean is an invention. If the Caribbean today, would it look like what it looks like today if the European did not, if Columbus did not land in the Caribbean in 1492 or in the 1400s?
I don't think so.
No, it is a Caribbean. It is an invention. And if I were to share, let's share my screen. And earlier I was sharing this. You might, when you came to the class, we talk about the timeline, what's the Caribbean and who determines this. We start with the past, but is it one of oppression or one centered on victory? Is it within a discipline that can stand alone or within blah, 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 blah? Anyway, but you guys have a copy of this. You guys should have a copy of this. It's on the JTS online. Starting from 1490s, the Caribbean region was inhabited by nomadic people, but so on and so forth. 1492, the reinvention of the Caribbean within the New World. Christopher Columbus arrived in the Caribbean, bringing European knowledge, religion, and people. His ulterior motives included the pursuit of gold, profit, greed, and international competition for capital. Yet, they said they were coming to, it was part of a crusade. They were coming to bring the gospel, the good news to people. But that was part of the process of colonization. There is this missionary aspect to colonization. When you think about it, there is a missionary aspect. Yes, there is. Okay. Um, the 1500s to the 1800s, the Atlantic slave trade brought enslaved Africans to the Caribbean to work on sugar plantations, transforming the region into a sugar plantation society. It became a sugar plantation society because that's so. Yes, that's not what the society was. The 1600s to the 1700s, the rise of heroes and maroons, escaped slaves who formed independent communities resisting colonial powers. The 1760s to the 1780s, Dottie Bookman was brought to Jamaica from Senegambia. Dottie Bookman escaped to Haiti in 1791, no, not in 1770s, I think it was, and became a voodoo priest, led the first major slave revolt in Haiti on August 14, 1791. He was killed around November 1791. Chantel, tell us a little bit about Dottie Bookman. Do you know anything about Dottie Bookman? Chantel, not Chantal.
I do not believe Chantel is able to speak at this time.
Okay.
Though she's on, I do not believe she can interact at this time, sir.
I don't know if some of it's fun to say any of you in the group is going to be talking about.
And you're gone again.
I don't know if any. Can you hear me now? I don't know
Yes.
if any of you going to be doing Dottie Bookman, but Dottie Bookman escaped to Haiti. If
Sir,
come
one
to me,
second. Sir, I want to ask a question.
yeah, go
Because
ahead.
you use the word missionary, right?
Yeah,
And in my understanding of that word is people who are more fortunate than things for the poor with the background of either Christ-like or Christian-like or was it the same thing back then in
yes,
that time?
because they were representing the church. Europeans, Europe, Christianity. They were promoting Christianity, the cross. Okay.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
And remember, in a way, they are privileged. Remember, we talk about Afrocentricity and Eurocentricity. Eurocentricity, there's only one world way to see the world. Africans don't have religions. They don't, okay, they don't have language. They don't have anything. So please remember that. So Europeans believe in a kind of privileged ideology. So yes, they came to spread Christianity in their colonialism. Dottie Bookman escaped to Haiti, became a voodoo priest, but he was already a voodoo priest. But he was a problem for the French and the English. He came to Jamaica. He was muscular, attractive. He was Mandingo-like, could read the Quran. And then you say, wait, hold up. You're telling me that there were slaves who came here from Africa, who they brought in from Africa. First of all, naturally muscular. C.L.R. James, in the beginning of the class, we talk about C.L.R. James' description of the African came to the Hispaniola, to the Caribbean. They were of fine physique, and they had to be of a certain physique in order to traverse the transatlantic to come here to the Caribbean. Well, to come here, I'm in the American. They came to the American. I'm part of the American. We are part of the Americans. Okay? And so that's important that he was of fine physique and he could read the Quran and could speak several languages. And he was a problem. But he escaped. He went in a ship to go into Haiti, found himself to Haiti, and started congregations. And he was the one that influenced Toussaint. And he was the one who actually started the first revolts, and they assassinated him. But Dottie Bookman, a voodoo priest from Senegambia who had started Obeah in Jamaica, voodoo in Haiti, could read the Quran, was born of fine physique, influence, and he influenced to saint. And the Haitian Revolution leading to the first revolt in Haiti before being killed. 1807, the British Parliament. Again, the Haitian Revolution was in 1804. British Parliament abolished the transatlantic slave trade. The British Parliament passes the Slavery Act, Abolition Act, which legally abolishes slavery throughout most of the British Empire, including the British West Indies in 1833. But it wasn't until 1865, we said that already. No, but before we go, let's talk about the First Dominican Republic. After Haiti gained independence from France in 1804, it occupied the eastern part of the island of Hispaniola, presently Dominican Republic. Haiti ruled over the eastern part of Hispaniola from 1822 to 1844. This period was marked by tensions and resistance from Dominican nationalists who sought to break away from Haitian control. Now, there is a controversy as to when Haiti actually became, Dominican Republic got independence. On February 27, 1844, Dominican Republic declared independence from Haiti, led by nationalist figures such as Juan Pablo Duarte, Francisco del Rosario, Francis, and so on. This event marked the end of Haitian rule over the eastern part of Hispaniola. Please remember that when Haiti got independence in 1804, in a sense that represented independence not just for Haiti but for Hispaniola, because by 1822, they went to Dominican Republic, and according to some people, they had colonized Dominican Republic, but it wasn't true. They drove out the Spanish, they drove out the occupiers, the Europeans, and they were seen as one people. And I'm actually, you know what? In fact, I want to play a video later about the Hispaniola Haiti controversy. Today there is a deep wedge between Haitians. There's a deep wedge between Haitians and people from DR, and part of it is as a result of what the Roman Catholic Church or the Europeans have done, the conspiracy to write a history that has done disservice to the true history of how Haiti, the Haitians, has helped to free DR, the people of DR. But there is a conspiracy, and in fact, at one time they were dubbed. They weren't Africans. They were Europeans. And
Oh,
go ahead, Jerome.
sir? When I mean, you say Haitians were dubbed, not Europeans?
Haitians, the DR, people from the DR, the people from DR,
Oh, okay.
they didn't want to have anything to do with the Haitians because there was a deep conspiracy that was built in to say that Haitians had colonized them.
Oh,
And so, but it was, I'm going to play a video. Juan Pablo, the leader at the time, worked with the Spanish crown and helped to create a wedge between Haitians and DR. Today, that continues even up to today. If you ask somebody from DR, what's your view of a Haitian? Okay, and there are many ways that Europeans have tried to sow wedge between Caribbean people. Say, for example, we have become baptized Christians, and we have outlawed voodoo or Obeah. So anyone that practices voodoo or Obeah is discriminated against.
sir.
Yes.
But okay,
As I was going to say, voodoo, Obeah, they're aligned or
exactly.
with,
It's literally
with
the same
black
thing.
magic and demonic things and all of those things. So why would we want to continue those rituals to be off?
Why do you believe? Why do you believe that Obeah and voodoo is associated with black? Notice the word black. First of all, notice the word black again. We
Yeah.
talk about, note, here comes the word
All
black,
right.
dark.
Let
With,
us replay. Hold
with
on, sir, before
African
you
magic,
continue.
with African spirituality, with African spirituality. Stop calling the African people and stuff black and dark and evil, all this stuff. With African
Sir,
spirituality. But this class is not, I don't want to talk about that because there's a class that I would talk about. I'm going to ask you a question. Should culture transcend theology? Should theology transcend culture? That's part of the lecture. I will be talking about Obeah and voodoo. So that's fine. We're going to, because you got, I mean, the Jamaican government decided to have open conversation about the legalization of Obeah, and the church shut it down in 2022, saying it is
Yes.
evil. It wasn't until
it's
1882, and
demonic.
it wasn't until, I'm pretty
It
sure we'll
is
talk about,
demonic. It is demonic, sir.
It's
that is,
demonic.
where do you get that from? Why do
Sir,
you,
the Bible tells you that if you seek refuge from anybody outside of the Lord thy God, it is
okay.
not of God. If you're not calling on God, what are you calling on? What powers are you calling on if it is not from God?
So wait, hold on. So you're saying that the people who use the people who use voodoo, the African spiritualists and so on, who use
They
African.
are calling
Wait,
on
no,
unclean
let me finish.
spirits.
Wait, hold on. The spirit, and God is a spirit, yes?
Sir, don't do that.
No,
You
no,
don't want to be making a mess.
I'm asking a question. God is a
Sir,
spirit, yes?
yes, the Bible says God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and truth. That is
And
completely
yes, God is
different
a spirit,
from what
yes?
you're insinuating.
And please remember, we're talking about Eurocentrism versus Afrocentrism, and a culture that has been embedded. We have been drained of our African tradition to now turn to look inward with disdain on our own origins, our own humanity, with such disdain, so that so anything black no good. Sorry, anything from Africa no good. They don't have religion. They are primitive. We have continued with that. Yes,
Sir, a lot of African people do not believe in voodoo and stuff like that. So what are you making
and a
reference
lot of
going from?
African people do. But who are doing
And
that? Where
that
you
is
get
subjective, but
and
sir,
a
that
lot
is
of African people do. Yes.
sir.
Nanny
At
of
the
the
end of the
Maroon.
day,
Nanny of the Maroon was it wasn't until 1880 where we get the idea that Obeah is Obeah is not
the
about
Bible.
let no, the Bible doesn't say anything about Obeah.
The
No.
Bible says, "Suffer not a witch to live." A Obeah worker is a man is a warlock, a woman is a witch.
Who call okay, there we go. There we go.
All
There we
right.
go. There
So
we
when
go.
you're finished, can I say something, please?
There
When
we
you're
go.
through.
Go ahead.
I'm telling you, you're being ethnocentric. You're
But
All right.
using
before go
European
ahead, I'm muting
values.
my mic. Go
We are
ahead.
using European values to make determination. We're saying, oh, African people don't have family. They are primitive. They don't have religion. Or and if they do have religion that is historical, it's a religion that is not based on anything
All right.
that is validated
All
because
right.
it's dark and witchcraft. It comes from, and that's fine to think that. But I'm asking these questions because we're in Caribbean thought,
We
and
were taught. We were taught it, sir. We were
no, but
taught.
I'm not
We
asking
were
about what you
socialized in
were.
that
No,
way.
no, I am not. We already defined colonization. We have already
Yes.
defined colonization. We are academics. We are critical thinkers.
Yes.
What is critical thinking? Is thinking about thinking and rethinking that what which was previously thought, because we are suspicious, because we know that their history has been bastardized, history has been corrupt to
Yes.
privilege a certain people over another, even
True.
their religion. Okay, Jews have their religion and they privilege that over and preserve it, and that has preserved their people. Okay, and so too as the Eastern people, the Indians, and so they all have the Africans that have preserved, but they're somebody said last week. So what I mean that no every time wherever there is black people, there's poverty. Wherever there's black people, I'm not saying that when as an academic and you study the world that we live in today has created a way that even the black man, sorry, the African himself, wherever he is, look at disdain. This is what Sigmund Freud talked about. This is what Franz Fanon talked about in Wretched of the Earth. when he says the colonized man, the colonized, the underdeveloped man is a
Oh boy.
political creature, is a political
Man.
creature in the most global sense of the term.
Sir,
Sir,
but
let's
this
ask
is
one question.
somebody's
Have one question.
opinion. This is
Sir,
not
no.
factual. This is
No, what
somebody's
Sir is saying.
opinion.
No, listen what Sir says.
I'm
Sir said, the reason we're thinking
Nah,
of
listen to the man.
well, on, the reason we're thinking we're
While
thinking
it's happening.
we're colonized to think that way. So even the Bible is a tool that is used to colonize us. But I'm saying, sir, where the notion come from, right? To have voodoo over here, so and negative over here, so where does that notion come from for just merging?
when we define, I said to you, when you study control, when you study power, the first thing you do is to redefine a thing.
Mm-hmm.
You redefine the African as property,
Right.
including his tool and his technology and his culture. Not only that, you redefine him as evil. And his religion. Colonization involves redefining people in order to exert control. And part
Understood.
of the process of colonization involves demeaning a people's religion, demeaning a people's language. The only language in the world is Spanish, English, and French.
But here goes the other
Those are
thing.
not the only language. Hold on. One second, Edwards. Are you saying that
Wait
those are the
one
only
second,
No.
everyone,
languages?
because I think I've been waiting patiently.
All
We
right.
need
Christina,
to
go
have
ahead.
If
Christina.
somebody else want to talk,
we need
sir.
to have some structure. We need to either raise our hands and then
Yes,
acknowledge what
yes,
we
I
want to
agree with
do.
that. I
All
agree with
right.
that.
All right. All
Yeah,
right.
one
Yeah.
person
However,
cannot take
I am
over the world,
sitting
sir.
here and I am listening to people who are thriving today off the backs of our Africans who did voodoo to make us be able to be free today,
Yes.
speaking about, oh, it is bad and it is this and that. But what if they had not done all of this so we can be free thinkers, free to own we care, we're not broken back on certain things? Where would we be? So we can't just say, oh, voodoo is evil and voodoo is that, which I don't double in those things, but to logically think, let's think about it. These are the things that make us free today. So why are we frowning upon it? What if they didn't do all of this to me? Where would we be today?
There
And
is a
it's
difference.
this thing that's attached to anything black, no good. Me not get it. Why do we hate ourselves and our culture so much that we try to frown upon what is ours? I am so happy that my forefather did all that they could, because they would have beat me, kill me, because me swear to God me can't do hard work. Me that run when me that do every time. I'm happy that my forefather did all that they could to make me free today. So why do we frown upon our forefathers' culture,
But
history, and
by the way,
religion?
and thank you, Christina. By the way, this class is about we continue with colonization. Colonization. I hope you guys okay. And I said colonization is a strategy that does not end after independence. And I was showing you the Caribbean outline, the history of Caribbean outline from beginning, and I wanted to continue going up to the 1940 and so on. And that's why, of course, Bob Marley talks. Some people don't look to Christianity. They created there's Jamaican revivalism, and so we'll talk about that. This class is not for that, but we'll talk about Jamaican revivalism and then the move to outlaw these African religions in 1882. The Crown and all the European countries, there was a move to outlaw all African traditions or Afro-Caribbean traditions or religions or traditions or practices. Obeah was one of them. Okay. When I was a young boy, I was walking on the side of the road. I was in Britain, and there was me and my brother and my twin brother and my best friend Michael. We would pass in Britain, and there was the little table with the glass there. And by the way, some of African tradition is part of Roman Catholicism and some of Christianity, just so you know. But anyways, because if it's not within Roman Catholicism or within European religions, it's not religion, it's evil. Okay. If the practice is not baptized by within Christianity, it's evil, or within the white religion, it's evil. But if it is done by the African, then it is dark and evil, just so you know. Anyways, But this is an important. Whenever we were walking to his house, we will go to the other side of the road. I would run. We would think that Rastas were dirty. I don't think so no more, but now though. But I would look down on Rastas because that's how I grew up, looking down on Rastas, looking down on anything. This is quite interesting. But I'm going to play this video quickly but I didn't intend to play it. But listen to this and let me make sure I'm
Sir,
sharing
Sir,
this.
before you play
the video, can you just take the hands in the chat, sir?
Go
Because lots of people
ahead.
been wanting to speak.
Go ahead.
Sir, there are 3 persons, so you have to look in the chat to call on each person,
Julian.
please.
Janelle, I haven't heard Janelle. Go ahead, Janelle.
Yes, sir. Sir, what you were saying before about Obeah and Google, sir. Sir, what I think some persons were getting confused, as I've seen the messages in chat where somebody says it's okay for persons to, Obeah somebody, or so they're looking at it from that standpoint. But from your standpoint, what I'm saying, sir, I 100% agree with you. Because
Obeah
if you're looking at
somebody.
it from a
Where we get the idea of
if you're
that?
looking at it from a colonization,
Colonization.
yes, perspective.
No.
You're looking
Let me
at
fix
that
it. You're looking from a
basking.
colonizers,
Yes.
as
If you
against
look
the
at it that way,
colonized,
in
as against the
order,
colonized.
if you are coming from France and you're coming to the Caribbean to capture a land and to get rid of the natives because you want to stake your claim, you are going to try, in order to push your views, the first thing you're going to try to do is completely wipe out and eliminate and try to make anything that they believe in seems like it is wrong and it is bad and it is and that's the first thing they're going to do, to try to just eliminate it. They try to make it sound like it's evil or it is bad or it is against the goodwill or against God. That's the first thing they're going to use against it, to make it seem like it's bad, because they want to wipe out what you believe in. If when I had a friend from she had a long descendants from the Ashanti tribe, right?
Mhm.
And she was saying that back in those days, they don't believe that voodoo are their type of practices that they practice. They don't believe it's wrong. At first, sir, when I didn't know about it, sir, I thought it was evil. I thought it was bad. I thought it was evil. When I listened to her, when I learned what she told me, and I did my own research. Sorry about that, sir, the noise. I did my own research, sir. I learned that I had this totally wrong. I had it completely wrong. And they twist it around to make it look like it was used for evil. When it was not, they were using it to connect to their ancestors. They were using it for healing, for spirituality, to get closer to God. It was never used for evil.
There are people who use the Bible for evil. The Bible, we are even in this class saying that there are those who used the Bible was used to enslave. We talk about the Crusades, where Christians went and destroyed hundreds of thousands of people through the Crusades. There are those who praying, cursing people, use the Bible, and you even pray for the destruction of other people.
The Mormons in America in the early part.
Now, just because, now I say to you, people redefine a thing in order to gain control. That's part of control. We are in this class we are in the subaltern. Well, we are doing history from below, not the periphery. We are now the people who were affected by history. We are now telling our own history, and we are doing our own research, and we are, okay? Of course, part of the challenge is our own brainwash. Part of the challenge is an inability, and that's inability to change all or to let go of what you know. I know, so Idris, I want to hear what Idris have to say because he's from Haiti. But before I do that, let me play this quickly.
I believe in Jesus
doesn't necessarily mean that I must put down some other person's belief and faith because they believe in something different. And not only that, I am going. Let us. By the way, you weren't at my first class then when I was talking. We actually did a little lecture looking at Obeah, and I'm going to talk. And that, by the way, I'm so happy I'm doing this class today, and I'm so happy I'm doing the research. You see how this is? Oh my God, this is great. Let us get Obeah. I have a lecture prepared to you to talk to you about Obeah. I want to share,
and
not only that, okay, it has nothing to do with those texts today. Okay. Oh, here. The French didn't like voodoo, and they didn't. I did a quick wrote our text introduction to a lecture on voodoo, handed it down to us, and we continue those. And I just said I did not want to talk about voodoo today. I don't know why I'm talking about voodoo, but here is it. By attacking people, it was used in it became known as that by the same European people who wrote our texts, who have handed it down to us, and we continue those texts today. Okay. The French didn't like voodoo, and they didn't like Obeah because Obeah and voodoo were used by the rebellions, the nanny of the Maroons, and all of these rebels to fight against European occupation and domination. They would always pray to their ancestors. They would look to their ancestors. They'll pray to them. They'll speak. They'll seek the help of spirit to give them the wisdom and the courage and to bring people together and talk about how they can fight against. They did not rely on the. Wait, no, there was not a reliance on. There was not a reliance on the white man's God. There was a reliance on that was known to them. You relying on their ancestors, calling on their ancestors, dancing to their ancestors, give them strength and power to tear down those who were fighting against them. Now, the Europeans were against that. Okay, and so what they did was to create text and book. This is how they created text and book about Haiti, and how Haiti colonized DR when that was not the case. Okay, when they actually helped. Okay, go ahead, Felmin.
You're very passionate about it. And if you continue, I'm going to miss my point. I'm going to miss my point. And you don't have it locked already. But, sir, if all of what you are saying, if that's how Obeah, based on your description just now, if that's how it was presented to us, I'm sure a lot of persons would not have a pushback against it. But growing up, and if others on here tell me if they have heard another version as you put it just now. Growing up, we know Obeah was introduced to us as something being evil. And it means me see Alan as shine. Let me finish the point, sir. Me see Alan. No, sir. Everybody. Sir, I wasn't sitting and a white man they teach me that. I was introduced this by our own people.
Who wrote our book?
Well, I've never read this from? Sir, I'm really ignorant. I've never sat down and read a book about Obeah because I'm not interested. Because how it was presented to me, introduced to me in terms of our culture, me see Alan as shine. Me not like Alan, and me feel say Alan not reach ahead of me. So me go mother, go pray for mother bring down Alan. God forbid Alan, I won't do that. God bless you and cover you in Jesus' name. But then we use it to stifle. It is presented in such a way we use it to tear down one another rather as you put it to protect.
All right, so there we go. So when I share that video to let you know that you guys aren't the only person to have this view. Every single and I'm doing we're doing a research. It's called we're exploring the attitudes towards Afro-Caribbean beliefs. It's also part of my dissertation, part of my study, part of a lab where we want to find out what is the attitude and why do you have, in fact, you should do a soft study. In fact, we are doing a study right now. If you go to, Chantel, do you have the research that we started from your group, looking at the changing attitudes towards Caribbean beliefs? We want to ask the students in this class, what is your attitude towards Obeah, voodoo, or Afro-Caribbean beliefs? What is your attitude? And
Chantel is not on, sir.
Huh?
Chantel is not on the platform right
No, no,
now.
yeah, she is. I'm
Yes,
seeing her.
I am. I am.
Yes, she
I am
is.
Why are you not
manufacturing.
talking, Miss? Sorry, my apologies.
No, hold on, because I was talking, I don't want to talk over, sir. But yes,
No,
sir, I
man.
will look, I will check my documents and I will see, sir. But
Yeah, I
I
can send it in the chat. I think it's on JTS online, the changing attitudes towards Caribbean. I would love all of
will
you to
see, so,
do it.
sir. Yeah, it
Please
is.
do it. I don't think they're doing it at UWI, but I am doing it, and a group of us are doing it. In fact, let me see if I can bring up this uh that particular study, and I would love for you guys to get involved. Since we're on it, let's go there. The changing attitudes towards Afro-Caribbean. Here we go. Which valuing African identity through religious affirmations of African traditions. So this is the lecture. It's called Valuing African Identity Through Religious Affirmations of African Traditions. It's available in my research gate. Is this it? Yes. And in it, I said that by examining changing attitudes towards Afro-Caribbean beliefs in Jamaica, the study aims to shed light. And I'm going to share my screen so that you guys see it. And then, Edros, I would love to hear your opinion because I know you're from Haiti. Some people believe that Haiti is the way they are today because of voodoo. It's crazy. Um, by examining the changing attitudes towards Afro-Caribbean beliefs, and I'm on ResearchGate, Jamaica Theological Lab. I mean, Georgetown University, but it's in the lab. We started this study in 2023. I hope to finish it this year. But by examining changing attitudes towards Afro-Caribbean beliefs in Jamaica, and by extension the Caribbean, the study aims to shed light on the impact of socio-political factors, religion, education, pop culture, travel experiences, and exposure on the evolving perceptions of Jamaicans. The findings will contribute to a deeper understanding on how societal changes influence cultural attitudes, promoting inclusivity, tolerance, and cultural heritage, and preservation, cultural preservation. The Caribbean is an invention. We said that the Caribbean is an invention. What are we going to be? But yet, through it all, we've worked hard to preserve our identity, our cultural identity. Yet, part of the plan was always for the Caribbean, and just so you know, the Caribbean is. I made a note today. I wrote on the notepad earlier today. Where is it? I talked about the Caribbean as part of the Caribbean is part of the Western civilization. The Caribbean is part of the New World. People who were colonized, hybridized, made into new beings. That's the inventedness of the Caribbean. Made in to be dependent capitalist people, to be dependent. Caribbean people or colonized people weren't supposed to rival the wealth. Caribbean people, colonized people don't have religion. The religion is the religion of the dominant. We talk about the center and the periphery. I was going to talk about the center and the periphery today. Homi Baba talked about the center and the periphery. The center and the periphery. What the periphery is what is mainstream. That which is European, that which is post-industrial is mainstream. But the post-colonial that was formerly colonized is still not main. His ideas, the plan was always to erase African history. Colonization always gets eaten up into the colonizer's way of life, his religion, his practice, his culture, and institutions are created to promote that narrative. It becomes a surveillance force, a surveillance society, a community that is always being watched and being observed by the gaze of the former, by the dominant. And systems are built within the colonized, now post-colonial, to continue colonization. So Postcolonialism suggests that colonization continues. It looks at the effects, the continuing effects of colonization, and part of that is to also look at the institution. I said, when you look at society, in whose interest? We said this is when you study society, you ask the question, in whose interest is the society developed? Okay, that's what sociology study. Martin Oppenheimer, who is one of my main influences in academia, who main influences. He asked the question in the state of modern society, in the book The State of Modern Society, when you study society sociologically speaking, in whose interest. And yes, especially as skeptics of the post-colonial milieu, we're gonna ask that question. We were colonized. So systems are built in, within institutions are developed. So now where the colonizer don't even have to be within the Caribbean, doesn't have to be within the Caribbean, because institutions are developed, law enforcement, constitutional frameworks are developed that help to perpetuate the European culture, European values over against anything that comes from the Caribbean or comes from the colonizer, who now is who is no longer colonized, but in a sense, he is still colonized, in a sense. When you listen to what Vladimir Putin is saying about Russia, yes, and what all these post-industrial countries are still saying about. So it's built in the system, within religious institutions, within school, within education. In 1882, Obeah was made illegal, and who were the politicians, and who were the teachers, and who were the lawyers, and who were the historians? Although we got independence, we were still under the rulership of Britain, of the colonizer. So then you ask this question about, where does this come from? Anyways, I'm talking about the study. So when you think about colonization and how it continues today, and how the history of colonization continues in many forms, and Bob Marley, to emancipate yourself from mental slavery, because we've been mentally transformed to look with such disdain upon ourselves, to the point where people are willing to, within the Caribbean, you find people are still using creams and formulas to make themselves look a certain way. We still believe that if you don't speak the Queen's English, you are still secondary to society. When a Caribbean, when a colonized person, when you are able to assimilate and to speak the language, and to live a life that is external to you, which is not, you will never attain to the invented position that you were made to be, but there are certain conditions that are met, that is fine. But so I'm doing a study. The findings will contribute to a deeper understanding of how societal changes influence cultural attitudes, promoting inclusivity, tolerance, and cultural heritage preservation. If Walter Rodney wrote the book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, it was always the plan to underdevelop the African, wherever he is. In the textbook of this class, I write, when we hear of the Caribbean, we think of beautiful islands of paradise, blah, 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 blah. Then I said, in an attempt to escape the adverse realities of poverty, inequality, and injustice, the people of the global south find themselves in north metropolises with very little agency, minimal change to their lives. In fact, except for the use of cleaning neoliberal waste, the immigrant is usually portrayed as an alien with 3 heads and big sharp teeth, seeking to steal and destroy the profit and disrupt society. As such, we will discuss Black, Brown, and Pan-African struggles for economic prosperity, justice, freedom, and consider efforts, abilities, inabilities to chart their own futures since decolonization and realize political and spiritual independence and economic prosperity. This is a real and economic text, not necessarily a spiritual text, but it's a very important book. Frantz Fanon says the colonized, underdeveloped man is a political creature in the most global sense of the term. That's what Frantz Fanon says in the 1960s, wherever he finds himself. And then he goes on to say in the book, the chapter on violence, he says, colonization. The need for this change. The need for this change exists in a jaw repressed and reckless state in the lives and consciousness of colonized men and women. The consciousness. I talk about consciousness. Conscious. Decolonization sets to change the order of the world. Is clearly an agenda for total disorder. That's the problem. It's difficult. Total disorder. I said the Caribbean must begin. African must begin a new history of man. Decolonization means starting over. It is a historical process, which involves disrupting the order. And when you think about it, it's not easy. It's difficult to do. We are always learning, but are we open to that? I don't know. But we are doing a study. We want to find out how have we been able to preserve our culture? But there's always this drive to. There's always a drive to preserve culture. But you notice, I said to you, the Chinese, the Indians, but the African culture, our religion, or our traditional practices, how do you preserve that? Because at the same time, how do you reconcile cultural preservation with a kind of way of life that we've adopted in today's society? Ultimately, the research aims to encourage a more informed, respectful dialogue surrounding Afro-Caribbean beliefs in Jamaica and the Caribbean. Anyways, I continue. This is the study exploring Afro-Caribbean beliefs. In Jamaica, there has historically been a negative perception towards African and indigenous spiritual practices, and that is true. Religious beliefs, customs, faiths that draw influences from urban Indian heritage or African traditions. Rastafarians, Obeah, Voodoo, Pocomania, or Poco Church revivalists, Muslim beliefs have often been marginalized, deemed as fringe, demonic, and unpopular. What you're saying to me is not new. I wrote a paper in 2023 about this, so this is not new. We're doing a research. But anyways, the point I'm making is that Rastafarians, Obeah, Voodoo, Pocomania, or Poco Church revivalist Muslims' beliefs have often been marginalized, deemed as fringe, demonic, and unpopular, juxtaposed side by side. Juxtaposed means side by side, against the inherited traditions from European colonialism. The Judeo-Christian faith, such as Roman Catholicism, Protestantism, and evangelicalism, have been favored and considered closer to the truth and the ideal. But please remember, the last class I talked about culture and theology. It will put it into more perspective. Culture and theology. Culture and theology. Rabbis were cultural leaders that sought to preserve the culture through rules, and through certain rules and requirements that make them uniquely Jew. I'm not a Jew. Anyways, let me continue. The Judeo-Christian faith, such as Roman Catholicism, Protestantism, and evangelicalism, has been favored and considered closer to the truth and the ideal. And I can share this paper with you. It's and if you go to ResearchGate, you can click on and you automatically get it. But I'll share it with you. I wasn't supposed. This wasn't supposed to be the class for it, but I'm sharing it with you now since it came up. However, in the 21st century, with increased exposure, awareness, critical thinking, and a more liberal lifestyle, particularly among the younger generation, it is critical to investigate whether attitudes towards Afro-Caribbean beliefs are changing. And I'm going to say that no, it is not, based on what I've learned. And the penultimate lecture, I'm going to talk about that because we're ready to wrap up this study. It has not. Exposure to the only exposure is exposure to learning, to a learning that focuses on the Afrocentric paradigm, and a book and getting Jamaicans exposed to a book like this. Columbus, they came before us. And then I'm supposed to be talking about the 25th dynasty and so forth. Talking about African civilization, African spirituality, so on and so forth. Looking at history, the African history as is. Looking at history, critically examine history. That is the only pop. I don't know. But I say in this study, I'm going to update this. It is crucial to investigate whether attitudes towards Afro-Caribbean beliefs are changing. No, it is not. Anyways, the study aims to explore the shifting attitudes of Jamaicans and the factors contributing to these changes, considering demographic variables such as location, age group, educational levels, income status, political affiliation, denominationality, and religious beliefs. Chantel Burton, you are one of the principals on this study. You should have access to it. We did it together. Can you send it to the students in the chat if you can? If not, I have it here. It could be a
What is
great.
that, sir? I don't have, I'm actually using my phone at the moment, sir. So I
I
won't
will
have
send it to the students because actually, let me see what time it is. Maybe we could take a break and have the students complete the research study, this study that they can all go online and do. But it's very powerful. The research objectives: one, to examine if Jamaican and Caribbean attitudes towards Afro-Caribbean beliefs have evolved over time. And if I were to ask that question, has it evolved? Based on what I'm hearing, no, it has not. Two, to determine if specific demographic factors influence changing attitudes, including location, age group, educational levels, income status, political affiliation, denominational, and religious beliefs. Three, to investigate the potential role for socio-political factors, religious influences, education, pop culture, travel experiences, and exposure in shaping attitudes towards Afro-Caribbean beliefs. To explore perceptions of African religious practices as cultic or occult and their impact on attitudes. Methodology: a diverse sample of Jamaican individuals representing different demographics, including location, urban, city, rural, so on and so forth, and educational levels, income, political, GLP, blah, 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 blah. The denominationality: Protestant, Anglican, Roman Catholic, Seventh-day Adventist, Evangelical, Revivalist, Poco, Mormon, Universal and religious beliefs, Rastafarian, Judaism, Satanism, Islam, Nation, blah, 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 blah. A research questionnaire will be designed to collect both quantitative and qualitative data. The questionnaire will cover the following questions or sections: demographics, religious affiliation, attitudes towards Afro-Caribbean beliefs. Additional information: provide participants an opportunity to share their personal experiences. Section 5, you can explore participants' political affiliation and any additional thought. Data collection: the questionnaire will be distributed through online platforms, social media, blah, 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 blah. Data analysis: quantitative data will be analyzed. Ethical considerations: the study will adhere to ethical guidelines, ensuring anonymity, informed consent, so on and so forth. By examining changing attitudes, this is the conclusion. By examining changing attitudes towards Afro-Caribbean beliefs in Jamaica, this study aims to shed light on the impact of sociopolitical factors, religion, education, pop culture, travel experiences, and exposure on the evolving perceptions of Jamaicans. The findings will contribute to a deeper understanding of how societal changes will influence cultural attitudes, promoting inclusivity, tolerance, and cultural heritage preservation. Notice cultural heritage preservation. We cannot preserve that aspect of our heritage by by adopting a foreign position on the issue, calling it evil. That is abnormal, or I don't know. That's it. To look with disdain on one's own, it's kind of interesting. When you, if you are social work students, as social work students, they're just so you know, the Pocomanians and Jamaica revivalism, Jamaican revivalism, they practice a form of voodoo, the utilization of herbs and spices and so on and so forth, to ward off evil spirits, warding off evil spirits, and for healing and promotion of good health. What is your social work? What is your social work to what will your social work look like? What will your guidance and counseling look like? There's an international conference that they're doing, I understand. Somebody sent it to me. Social work conference. The international conference this conference that they're doing in Jamaica at the Pegasus should talk about this. How do we practice social work within a highly discriminatory environment? Anyways, and that's the research questionnaire, blah, 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 so on and so forth. It goes on. And then there's some reflection, which is really a lecture that which I tacked onto this. The study notes Caribbean Afro-religious religions and practices. Jamaican religious traditions have a rich and diverse history, particularly within Afro-Caribbean communities. When over 750,000 African captives were brought to Jamaica from regions such as the Bight of Biafra, present-day Ghana. Of course, we said that we were looking at we were tracing Caribbean history. We said Dr. Bookman came, he brought his religion with him. The African people came here, you know. Today I was saying, what should I talk with the students about? I said I'm going to continue with I'm going to talk about post-colonialism. And I said to them, I want the students to understand that post-colonialism, that colonization as a strategy continues to today through various forms, neoliberalism, capitalism. So in various forms. And we talk about a world order and how these big superpowers create a world order that creates a framework that continues their monopoly and their dominance and their privilege. We talk about Michel Foucault and Jean-Paul Sartre. We talk. Homi Bhabha says the colonized, underdeveloped man is a political creature in the global sense of the term, and he's a psychoanalytic theorist. If you study social work, know the work of Frantz Fanon, very important figure. He's important. And I say to you, I was asking, what do I tell the students? And I said, I have to drive home the idea that post-colonization continues today in various forms. I wanted to drive home the point. And I wanted to make the point that post-colonialism, also known as post-colonial theory, and this is very important, constitutes a critical academic examination of the enduring cultural, political, and economic legacies of colonialism and imperialism. Legacy. Now, right now, the way how we respond to an Afro-Caribbean tradition suggests the legacy of colonialism. Already suggests. The way how we are talking about Afro-Caribbean stuff and the way how we continue, we are saying, if I were to close your eyes, remove your accent, and have you speak, say, hey, what do you think about these various things? A, B, okay, Obeah, evil. Voodoo, evil. And then I ask somebody who is from Timbuktu, do you think this person is white or black? From Europe or Caribbean? They're going to say, who do you think? The person is going to say, oh, that person is white, that person is from Timbuktu, that person is from Europe. And then they remove the veil from there and say, oh my God, it's an African person speaking of African heritage. But that's the legacy. Postcolonialism suggests that colonization continues even to today. And Frantz Fanon, in the book Wretched of the Earth, the chapter on violence, talks about a national reawakening, national liberation, national reawakening, restoration of the nation to the people of Commonwealth, to the people or Commonwealth. Whatever the name used, whatever the latest expression, decolonization is always a violent event. At whatever level we study it, individual encounters a change of name for a sports club, the guest list of a cocktail party, members of a police force, or the board of directors of a state or private bank. Decolonization is quite simply the substitution or the exchange, the change of one species of mankind by another. The substitution is unconditional, absolute, total, and seamless. But Caribbean decolonization was not absolute. And when you study post-colonial theory and look at post-colonialism as it exists, look at post-colonialism, looking at the legacy of colonialism and imperialism, the political, economic legacy, the cultural legacy. And we're saying that post-colonialism, it examines the enduring cultural, political legacy. Michel Foucault, I hear my professor talking about Michel Foucault, I love that guy. Michel Foucault talked about how continuing in the same tradition of Jean-Paul Sartre, continuing with the tradition, critiquing the idea that it is not natural. How do you know anything? You go there, what's the color of that tree? Metaphysics. The color of that tree is not black. It's every color. It's not green. It's every color but green. When you study emergentism or when philosophy helps you to look at, metaphysics study what is ultimately real. And part of the Afrocentric paradigm looks at epistemological understanding of things and metaphysical. As a post-colonial, we have to be skeptics. Metaphysical, what is ultimately real about the reality of this invention? Post-colonialism. So here am I thinking, okay, I'm going to talk about post-colonialism, and then you guys have me talking about a little bit about African spirituality and voodoo and so on and so forth. And then I'm saying, oh my God, I didn't get to talk about post-colonialism. But guess what? We are actually, but the discussions reflect the enduring legacies of colonialism. Post-colonialism centers on the impacts of human domination. Last week we're talking about, if you're really into this class and you're really following what I'm saying, and you listen, okay, if you're really into this class, we talk about the colonized man is a political creature in the global sense of the term. It was thought that he has no religion. It was thought that he has no culture. But it was important for us to think that. And then, of course, and race was invented to justify slavery and to stroke their religious egos. Because how can religious people who promote the Bible treat people like, enslave a whole people and treat them like dogs in order to do their bidding? Then they develop a concept of race and then put black people, so people from Africa, and then call them black. And then develop the philosophical framework, logic that demonstrates, that shows how black people, how Africans who are black are good for nothing. Okay. They don't have family. Edith Clarke. Okay, in her sociology, Edith Clarke, who wrote My Mother Who Fathered Me. You guys, if you study sociology, or if you get a chance to do Caribbean, so we used to do Caribbean sociology at JTS. My Mother Who Fathered Me. They are studying communities in Jamaica, some communities in Jamaica and in the Caribbean, where the family practices are different, where they're shacking up and so on and so forth, and practicing a kind of family style where people, cousin sleeping with cousin, brother sleeping with brother, and it's like it's as if it's normal, and they're shocking up and like trying to understand. And these communities have certain kind of lifestyle that's different from other parts of Jamaica. The nuclear and how most Jamaicans advocate for that kind of lifestyle. But then when you look at it, and then her explanation is that, oh, it is big. This is what they brought this from Africa, from this, and they are probably from a particular African tribe, and they brought this. Not true. Her sociology was influenced by a European understanding of what pertains in Africa, because Africa have an understanding of family. And in many senses, you would have heard that when you start to study the land of Kemet and what pertains in Egypt, or which, well, it wasn't Egypt, but they now call it Egypt, in Kemet and the land of Africa, what pertains, they had a sense of family. And I was going to talk about Burkina Faso and what Burkina Faso is doing and how they have outlawed the French, and they are no longer taking money from the IMF and the World Bank, and now the country is growing. And I said that we have to be sacrificially independent as Jamaicans, relying on. We were having an argument last week, I wasn't saying that we should rely on the US. I was saying that why we have to look to the East or the West. Why can't we come up? Looking to the superpowers have not helped us. Jamaica have to carve out its own future, just like what they are doing in. Maybe we should learn from Burkina Faso, which I'm going to share that a bit. But here and part of the legacy of colonization is our economic position. We are a dependent capitalist country, Caribbean. We are always supposed to be dependent on aid, and now they have gotten rid of USAID. I don't know but the problem is, I'm saying to you, this is post-colonialism here. The classes, the institutions were supposed to be true to our colonial education, but I am not true to it. They didn't, I was supposed to teach Christianity today. They didn't allow me to teach it at JTS. They said, no, Renaldo can't teach Christianity today. He can't teach that course. Because, I am going to expose you to the truth. I'm sorry, expose you to what persists, so that then you now can use your own intelligence to make up your mind. I am solidified in what I have come to know. Because I said to you, do I go to a church on a Sunday? Yes. Do I go to a church that promotes Jesus? Yes. But how does that work? Now that's interesting. We can talk about that personally later on, but I'm going to tell you how that has come to inform my theology philosophy. It centers on the impacts of post-colonialism, centers on the impact of human domination and exploitation of colonized peoples and their lands. That's what post-colonialism looks at. And Caribbean thought is part of post-colonial theory. Caribbean thought is part of post-colonial theory, part of post-colonialism. Looking at post-colonialism, we are looking at that because post-colonialism is a current. Colonization is a current that has created the invention of the Caribbean today. What will it be in the 21st century, and who will be responsible to take it there? Will it be you? What has helped to hamper and derail Caribbean success? We've always heard about emancipating, mental slavery, so on and so forth, but part of our own understanding and the legacy of colonization and what we have held on to. Post-colonialism it centers on the impact of human domination and exploitation of colonized peoples and their lands, emerging in the 1960s. Scholars from formerly colonized nations pioneered this field, developing a critical theoretical framework to analyze the history, culture, literature, and discourse influenced by European imperial powers. Even, again, history, culture, literature, and discourse. So the discourse about Obeah, the discourse about African traditions, African family, and so on. And that's why we talk about African Africology. That's why we talk about an Afrocentric paradigm. That's why we talk about Afrocentricity. Where now we can take, we talk about the subaltern studies. We talk about a history from below. To take back that history But how do you reconcile that as people, as as Christians at JTS? What must you now do? Probably, you know what? You guys will have, that is something you have to think about it. I'm not going to give you the answers because as an academic, that's not my job. As a scholar, that's not my job. Okay. Postcolonialism functions as an epistemology, ethics, political science, addressing the post-colonial identities of decolonized peoples. It critiques how Western societies or cultural knowledge was used to subordinate non-European peoples. Again, post-colonialism, and we're looking at the purpose and the basic concept of post-colonialism, is that it functions as an epistemology. It functions as an epistemology, and that's important. And the next thing that you guys, I'm going to share my screen. Something wrong here. Share screen. And then we're going to go back to Afro-Caribbean beliefs. I'm using one stone to kill three birds. Here we go. What the purpose and basic concept. Postcolonialism functions as an epistemology, ethics, and political science, addressing the post-colonial identities. By the way, I've written an article on this and shared it, and it's also available in JTS Online Moodle. And I've also sent a copy of this. I've shared it with. I also do some work with the AI people. So I've shared this. I've shared some Caribbean stuff because, you know, as I said, as Caribbean people, we must not be thermometers. We must be thermostats. So I've been feeding a lot of stuff into ChatGPT AI, so that we have a Caribbean understanding of the concepts. And this is important because it's important. We have to create a Caribbean perspective. Postcolonialism functions as an epistemology, ethics, and political science, addressing the post-colonial identities of decolonized peoples. It critiques how Western cultural knowledge was used to subordinate non-European people. Reinforcing colonial power dynamics through categories of colonizer and colonized. Whose religion we practice? The colonizer over our own. When you study psychology, and when you look at, and many of you study psychology or do introduction to psychology, and look at the DSM-4 or the DSM-5 or the DSM, I think they're what, DSM-5 now? I got the DSM-5. I did the DSM-4 TR. They've updated the DSM. And when you start to study maladies or disorders, Frantz Fanon looks at how the issue of colonization creates this malady. Postcolonialism critiques how Western cultural knowledge, the knowledge that we have, was used to subordinate non-Western European peoples, reinforcing colonial power dynamics through categories of colonizer and colonized. Reinforcing colonial power dynamics. When you look at the heads of churches, a lot of heads of churches, they're not in Jamaica or the Caribbean, they're overseas. Power dynamics. Even within that, even within the Christianity where you have that, there is you find that. Post-colonial theory aims to dismantle these intellectual, linguistic, social, and economic frameworks, spiritual frameworks imposed by colonialists, creating intellectual spaces where marginalized voices can articulate their own cultural discourses in philosophy, language, society, and economy. What is your voice, or whose voice is? What is your voice? understanding the intricate political, what is the approach to post-colonialism or post-colonial theory? Understanding the intricate political, social, economic, and cultural impacts left by colonial rule is, remember, we talk about what does post-colonialism do? It looks at the legacy, the enduring legacy. You must be able to define this. You will define this in the exam. I was writing your exam last night, and this was on there. Okay. And you must understand this. Post-colonialism has to do with what? It examines what? The enduring cultural, political, and economic legacies of colonialism and imperialism. So understanding the intricate political, social, economic, and cultural impacts left by colonial rule is essential to grasping post-colonialism. The discourse encompasses a broad spectrum from ongoing struggles against colonial and neo-colonial practices to movements for independence and cultural autonomy. Post-colonial studies draw from anthropology, and your professor is a student of anthropology. That's my main area: anthropology, historiography, political science, philosophy, sociology, and human geography to examine power dynamics and cultural narratives between colonizers and colonized. The idea of power dynamics is very important to me. I've oftentimes said life is about people and how people relate. Yet, life is what you make it or you allow others to make of it for you. Let me say that again. Life is about people and how people relate. And those words are my words. I wrote those. Copyright. Life is about people and how people relate. Yet life is what you make it or you allow others to make of it for you. Think about that for a second. When you study society, you look at the relationship that exists between people. But when you study the Caribbean, you don't just look at how people relate within the Caribbean, but you look at how the people within the Caribbean relate with those outside of it, especially those in the global north. And the ways in which the globe and the dynamics that exist today. In an interview, I'm going to do an interview on Monday, Chantel. It's Monday, I think. My interview is Monday. But I did an interview with these people before. And in the interview, I talked about the power dynamics that exists between in people in the world. The colonized people were supposed to be poor, but were supposed to do well, but their wealth weren't supposed to outrival that of the other. It is very important for us to understand this concept that this power dynamics that exist. You want to look at the power dynamics. What is the relationship? I said to people when I came to the US and in the interview, I wanted to understand the power dynamics that exist between people, between the global south and the global north. Why is it so vulnerable? So on and so forth. And as the post-colonial theory facilitates an opportunity for us to do that, and you look at the power dynamics and the history of that, the religion. You look at the issue of identity, or you look at who is represented in worship in various religions, but within the Caribbean, who is represented? Who is the image? Bob Marley, Muta Baruka has an idea about that. We can talk about that later on I'm going to present we're going to talk about the Maroons and so on and so forth if we have time. Another thing that post-colonial theory does, or post-colonialism, is that it involves it's a colonialist discourse. It's a colonialist discourse. Historically, colonialism justified itself. What time is it? Justified itself as a civilizing mission. Again, colonialism justified itself as a civilizing mission, promoting Western cultural and racial superiority over non-Western societies. Figures like Ernest Renan propagated ideologies of imperial stewardship, claiming moral and intellectual superiority to regenerate supposedly inferior races. This discourse, this discourse, this discourse perpetuated through the scramble for Africa and other colonial ventures, shaping perceptions of colonial subjects and justifying their exploitation for economic gain and geopolitical dominance. Again, figures like Ernest Renan propagated ideologies of imperial stewardship, claiming moral and intellectual superiority to regenerate supposedly inferior races. He was one of the theorists who helped to promote the inferiority of the races, or created this racial complex, and then talked about the inferiority of races. This discourse perpetuated through the scramble for Africa and other colonial ventures. Scramble for Africa, by that I mean there was a scramble to take over Africa and to take other people's places, to take over other people's religion, to take over other people's things. This scramble for Africa and other colonial ventures, the Caribbean, so on and so forth, shaping perceptions of colonial subjects and justifying their exploitation for economic gain and geopolitical dominance. Postcolonial identity. Postcolonial theory argues that decolonized people develop identities shaped by interactions among various cultural, national, ethnic, gender, and class identities, as defined by colonial societies. It examines how subaltern colonial subjects resisted and renegotiated cultural dominance, complicating the establishment of colonial societies and influencing post-colonial identities and cultural narratives, like what we were talking about in the Afrocentric paradigm. Developing a discipline like Afro-Ecology, yes, that focuses on a position of victory and a position of oppression, that looks at African epistemology, metaphysics, study history from an African perspective, utilizing epistemology and philosophy and metaphysics and axiology. But if we are trapped within a knowledge base, an institution that promotes a colonizer's knowledge, then we will continue to hold on to certain truths about our histories and ourselves. Notable theoreticians and theories include key figures like Frantz Fanon, Edward Said, Gayatri Spivak. And by the way, if you know of Ian Baruma, who talks about Occidentalism and Orientalism, Edward Said, or that's part of ethnocentrism, using your own values to judge others. Ethnocentrism. Part of that ethnocentrism involves Occidentalism. An example of ethnocentrism is Occidentalism or Orientalism. The East view that the Western people don't have religion, while the West, or thinking that they are immoral, while the West thinking that the East, they are simple, they are unintelligent. Okay, they can't do anything. So if they do export certain jobs, certain industries, certain intellectual white collar jobs or industries are are exported to certain communities and certain people, to Europe. But if they want to looking for people to make clothes and agriculture and to cut, or you want people, immigrants to come and cut to work in the farmland, the Canadians go and get the Caribbean people or Africans and so on and so forth. Or you send, or you create sweatshop conditions in the global South countries and in the Caribbean, or call centers that pay $3.50 US per hour. And then I understand the Prime Minister said things are going well in Jamaica now. And they've just signed the bill. The water was an issue in Jamaica. I had a problem with that. But anyways, some key people that you need to look at: Frantz Fanon, Edward Said, Spivak, Homi Bhabha, have significantly shaped post-colonial theory. Fanon's analysis in The Wretched of the Earth highlighted the psychological and societal impacts of colonialism, advancing violent resistance as a means of reclaiming agency and dignity. Edward Said's Orientalism critiqued how Western scholarship constructed and perpetuated stereotypes of the East, reinforcing colonial power dynamics. Spivak introduced concepts like the subaltern and epistemic violence, emphasizing the marginalization of non-Western ways of knowing and being. Non-Western ways of knowing and being. That's not from Spivak. And when we started talking about Afro-Caribbean are doing that in the Afrocentric paradigm, with the Kawada or Karenga. We talk about Karenga, the 7 basic characteristics of the African, the Karenga. It's all about promoting non-Western, promoting African ways of knowing and being. So what is Caribbean epistemology? Is it still a Western way? Well, we are part of Western civilization. But a Western civilization that has corrupted and bastardized the people and the place. And we are part of that people and we are part of that place. Homi Bhabha's notion of hybridity challenged the notion of cultural purity and authenticity, arguing for the complexity and fluidity of cultural identities in post-colonial cultures. In conclusion, postcolonialism remains a dynamic field that critically examines the lasting effects of colonialism and imperialism on global societies. Colonialism continues even to today, or in various forms or control. For me, if you were to ask me to define colonialism, control, a process of control, or a strategy of control. It underscores the importance of decolonizing. Postcolonialism underscores the importance of decolonizing knowledge. Decolonizing knowledge. Probably that's the solution, Chantal. Decolonizing knowledge and perspectives. Fostering inclusive and equitable societies where diverse cultural identities can thrive. By interrogating power dynamics and cultural narratives, post-colonial theory contributes to ongoing discussions on justice, identity, and emancipation in our increasingly interconnected worlds. And I'm going to stop there with that. I'm not going to stop sharing my screen and then go back to what I was talking about earlier. Where was it? Right here. Share screen. About Caribbean Afro-religions and practices. Jamaican religious traditions we have a rich, diverse history, particularly within Afro-Caribbean beliefs or communities, when over 750,000 Africans or African captives were brought to Jamaica from regions such as the Bight of Biafra, present-day Ghana, and West Africa or West Central Africa during the 18th century, also from Senegambia or Senegal and Gambia. A variety of African and African-influenced religions practices began to emerge as they were coming. One of the prominent traditions is Obeah. It came from Africa. So nothing black, no good. Anyways, which serves as a system of herbal and spiritual technology used for various purposes. Again, what does Obeah used for? It was a system of what? Herbal and spiritual technology used for various purposes. Obeah practitioners often referred to as readers, where the reader man, are skilled herbalists sought after for healing physical, spiritual, and mental disorders, as well as protection from malevolent spiritual forces, malevolent being bad spiritual forces. Obeah was also historically associated with slave resistance and revolt, with beliefs in its practitioners' ability to poison and dominate others through the manipulation of shadows. Some researchers trace the origins of Obeah to the Ashanti people of present-day Ghana and their practice of Obeah Yifo. And that's what they call it. It's not called Obeah, it's called Obeah Yifo. Another significant Jamaican religious traditions. And of course, that was part of the problem. They were actively praying against the Europeans. Another significant, of course, it was not in the European interest for Obeah to thrive if you are praying for the destruction of the Europeans, or for them, or for your independence and your freedom. Another significant Jamaican, when you read the Old Testament, and you see a lot of that in the Old Testament, but it is still the word of God. Another significant Jamaican religious tradition is Jamaican revivalism, also known as Pocomania. This tradition is more structured than Obeah and exhibits similarities with Haitian voodoo. And by the way, Haitian voodoo, Jamaican revivalism has numerous churches. Sorry, I apologize. Jamaican revivalism, also known as Pocomania, Many of you didn't know that, but this tradition is more structured than Obeah. It's more structured. It's like Obeah, but it is more structured than Obeah. And in fact, it's more structured than Obeah, and it's an institution and exhibits similarities with Haitian voodoo. Jamaican revivalism has numerous churches and congregations in major US cities. Today, it incorporates elements of Western Africa and Haitian religions, with various spirits venerated in the tradition being associated with specific foods, colors, and music. Music was always associated with this kind of, with African traditions and spirituality. And eventually in Christianity, that became an important aspect of Christianity. It was morphed into that. But rituals often involving drumming and dancing and trance-like states, allowing contact between worshippers and spirits for divine healing or inspiration. That, you see, that wasn't part of Roman Catholicism or Christianity in the early part of Christianity, you know. The drums and music and so on and so forth, and the ways in, and over time the way in which the Christianity, if you were to study how Judah or Jews view who read the Torah, how their view of the Spirit or the Holy Spirit, or as it, and the idea of spirit and the idea of God and the idea of music and drumming, as against how it persists today in Christianity. And over time, how that has changed, and in the turn of the 1900s, you find the apostolic movement, the growth of the rise of this apostolic movement, which a lot of incorporated a lot of African tradition, dancing and prancing, and part of that comes from that African tradition. And many of us don't even realize that where it comes from. Rituals often involve drumming and dancing and trance-like states, allowing contact between worshippers and spirits of divine healing. You go to certain mainline churches. Say, for example, if you were to look at in Christian churches today, and you look at certain churches, Methodist church or an Anglican church, if you were to speak in tongues or start beat the drum too hard, or they say boom, flip. Can I use the term? Flick. What they call it? Flip. I can't call the word again. I can't. I remember the expression. When you, I mean, when you feel the spirit and start to move and you start to sing and move. In some churches they look at you weird. That's too African. But some of these, anyway, but rituals often involve drumming, and part of Obeah and voodoo involves part of that dancing and the trance-like states, allowing contact between worshippers and spirits for divine healing or inspiration. While the Holy Spirit is said to possess devotees in revivalist traditions, spirits of biblical figures like Jeremiah and Peter are also invoked. The idea of the Holy Spirit, the invocation of the Holy Spirit within Christianity, okay, post-date does not predate. Post-date, the idea of this invocation of the Holy Spirit, I mean, of biblical figures like Jeremiah, of ancestors and other figures. Perhaps the most well-known Jamaican religious tradition is Rastafarianism, which emerged during the Depression years of the 1930s. The 1930s. It is a complex spiritual, and the 1930s is quite interesting. The 1930s, you find Rastafarianism, and by the 1960s, you have the music now, the gospel. Reggae music is to Rastafarianism as gospel is to Christianity, or Christian music is to Christianity. Rastafarianism, which emerged in the Depression years of the 1930s, and in the 1930s, there was a rise of populism, a rise of communism, a rise of Pan-African movement. This movement, independence movement in the 1930s. And earlier I wanted to show you guys that next week I'll probably try and begin with that, tracing Caribbean history. And then by 1950s, you have the Bandung Conference. And by the 1960s, you have the independence movement. But it was easy to give independence, not on our terms, but on their terms, except for Haiti. Sorry, except for other countries that try to take their independence, and that's the problem. But Rastafarianism emerged during the Depression of the 1930s. It is a complex spiritual and political movement that combines Jamaican folk Christianity with Pan-Africanist sentiments influenced by Marcus Garvey's United Negro Improvement Association. So Marcus Garvey helped to influence Rastafarianism, and Rastafarians reject British colonialism. They reject it. And they draw inspiration from Ethiopia. So they don't look to, as I said to you, when you listen to people like Bob Marley, and I don't look to the east, I don't look to the west, I look to the I. He looked to, and part of that involves getting inspiration from those cultural influences that associate with him and his people and his history. That has always marked theology and culture. When you study the theology of all things and the culture, that you find that which comes first, culture or theology? Or theology, does culture come before theology? Does theology come before culture? Rastafarians reject British colonialism and draw inspiration from Ethiopia, because Ethiopia represents Africa. Ethiopia represents that's the land of his people, from Ethiopia. And then he looked to Ethiopia because at the time the only African king was Haile Selassie. At the time, the only African king, and Ethiopia was not colonized at all by the Europeans. However, they were influenced by the Europeans. But Ethiopia is quite, but in a sense, were they colonized? In a sense, you might think that they weren't colonized, but they were influenced. and if they can't colonize or underdevelop them, or if they can't colonize them, they underdevelop them, according to Walter Rodney. But Rastafarians adopted the name Rastafari, which means Prince of Tafari province, as their own. Some Rastafarians have even settled in Ethiopia. Rastafarians, Ethiopia, Ghana, Zaire, fulfilling the dream of a return to Africa, building on the Marcus Garvey. Now, Rastafarians interpret the Old Testament as the history of Black people. The Old Testament as the history of Black people, and view themselves as successors of biblical prophets. So many Rastafarians even use the scriptures, but for them, their approach to the scripture, and many of us might say, well, you still use the same scriptures, but okay, they go out. They use it, but they go beyond it. They're not limited by it. But their approach, their theology, or their exegesis, their exegesis is quite interesting. So the interpretation of the Old Testament for them is what the history of Black people. And I don't like to use the word Black, but when I wrote this, I was not exposed to the Afrocentric paradigm in the ways I should. I was not exposed to Afrocentricity in the ways I should, or else I would have put the history of African people, and view themselves as successors to the biblical prophets. You know, please remember, a position of Afrocentric paradigm looks at a position of victory rather than a position of oppression. Rastafarians, they speak often as the present-day voices of prophets like Moses, Joshua, and Isaiah. The distinctive Rastafarian hairstyle, dreadlocks. We talk about the 7 cultural characteristics of the African, and you saw the Rastafaris. Their distinctive hairstyle is dreadlocks, symbolizes both the lion's mane and the strength of the biblical figure Samson. Quite creative. Rastafarians believe that African warriors also wore their hair in a similar style. And of course, postmodernists will tell you, or some people will, oh, religion is a creation. The way we see God, the way we view him is invented by a human system steeped in privilege. Rastafarians believe that African warriors also wore their hair in a similar style. African warriors. The sacramental use of marijuana among Rastafarians is considered to bring divine inspiration, cure diseases, and enhance strength. In the United States, Rastafarianism is widely associated with its reggae music, which carries the rhythm and message of the tradition. Reggae lyrics often express social protest and the longing to return to the biblical Ethiopia. Rastafarians, through its cultural expressions and resistance to US-centric Jamaican and American cultures, affirms African identity and serves as a form of protest even today. So even Rastafarianism served as a form of protest to US-centric Jamaican and American cultures. Okay. And there are some other concepts, there's some other points I want to share concerning this particular point I just read earlier, because this is quite powerful and this is quite important. Because there's one other point I wanted to share as it relates to this, and you can go online and do this study, by the way, guys. I hope. Did you find the study, Chantel? Did you find the let me see if I could find it. If you guys want to go online and is it that one? No, JTS. There we go. Uh, Oops. What is it called again? Is it this one? No. Trying to find. Oh, I can't find it. Hold on a second, guys. I found it. Ah, found it. Afro-Caribbean beliefs. Actually, there's two surveys. There's a petition, and there's a petition. I'm going to send you two links. The one that says "Take a stand for Haiti in support." Take a stand for Haiti. Support a Haitian-led solution. We, the undersigned, urgently appeal to the CARICOM member nation through the CARICOM Secretariat to take immediate action. We'll talk about that next week. Okay, this is it. Let me share this with you guys. Send. Include form and email copy. Copy. All right, I'm going to send this to you guys right now. This is the survey. Go to chat. Do you guys see it in the chat, guys? The survey? Do you see that? That's the
Yes,
survey.
sir.
Great. You can bring you can look at it. If you guys can complete the survey, that would be great. Let me bring up the screen. That would be really, really good. There's one more thing I want to do before I send you guys out for we started a little bit late today, but there's one more thing I want to do. Let's close this. Thank you for your interest, blah, blah, blah. That's the study. I think there's one more consideration I want to share with you. So let me see how many people have responded so far. Over 100 persons have completed this questionnaire. That's very good. That's very, very good. Very, 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 very good. I like that. There's one more consideration I wanted to share with you guys before I switch to another subject. And then Idris, please, you were going to make a point. Go ahead.
Well,
Idris?
sir,
Go ahead. Yes.
and I think you speaking on most of the things that I would like to speak about is that when we come to the term of voodoo, is that I would like people to well know what we are talking about voodoo. Don't take it. I would like people not to take it like what we heard what people say about voodoo, and so there is a bigger context in voodoo where people talking, because when we in my understanding, or the way that people understand voodoo in my country, is that the same way that you are believe in God that you serve, the voodoo priest or whatever that it is believe in the God. They believe in the same God that we worship. So I would like you all to understand that, because the same God you worship, and you believe in the Holy Spirit to do things for you, but them they believe in the lower, which is the spirit that they believe that can come quicker to do the movement that they want to do. So we, as Christians, we believe in the Holy Spirit. And a lot of people talking about Obeah, as you mentioned in your presentation, is that most of the things that we are using today is come from the voodoo itself.
Yes.
For example, when you're getting sick,
yes,
you go to the and take 2-3 leaves from the bush and boil it and drink. You say it's good for headache or belly pain and stuff like that. But they come from voodoo itself, because voodoo is just something that something that is just like is an educational thing. That things that you don't know and then they tell you about it. Is that the maybe people take it with miss it with sorcery or witchcraft that the European brought to us into the Caribbean. That is what the people don't know. This witchcraft thing is come from the Europe and come into the Caribbean. So now, and for people to understand the things of Haiti is that is the mixture of voodoo and the witchcraft of the European in the colony that beat them for us to get the independence. So voodoo, the voodoo itself is one, but the Asian voodoo is something else. So that is my point. But you say a lot, but I don't want to go.
No, thank you. Thank you so much.
But there is a lot of things that people do not grab the concept properly. That is why I research and I learn about voodoo before I see anything bad about it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Anybody else? Anybody else?
Sir, it's not about voodoo, but I would just share an experience as I had when I went to Bobo Hill, where the Rastafarians are at, and it was quite an experience, I tell you. Quite an experience. I think every Jamaican should get a chance to go up there and experience the Rastafarianism from that perspective.
Okay, thank you so much. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna try. Go ahead.
Doesn't all these religions have their roots in Christianity? Wasn't Christianity originated in Africa? I mean, all these religions, they use the Bible, they use all of these things. Some are we would classify as extreme.
Hold on. Stop. Did you say that again? Christianity originated where?
In Africa.
Okay, Christianity as a religion.
Maybe not as we know it today, but
because we know Jesus was a Jew, yes?
Yes, but not as we know it today. But when you look at the religions that came out of Africa, I think there's a church in Jamaica now that still promotes that, and it has its basis in Christianity, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church.
A lot of Christianity is relatively new. New religion compared to
well, the way it came from the Europeans, but when you think about the religion in itself and the parts of the Bible that speak about where a lot of Africa is in the beginning of the Bible, the Garden of Eden,
Africa,
all of these things.
I mean, the world exists. There we have a world and it exists. But the thing is, and when you start to read the books like the Iliad and start learning about Mesopotamia, Samaria, so on, then you start learning about religions and how they exist. The idea of the gods, because of course we know about Judaism and the Torah, but that was a people. That was a people with their own practices, their own cultures. Other parts of the world, they were doing something else, and God was acting. The European believed that only God could only speak to them. He couldn't be speaking to the Africans. So that within their culture, they could foment and create an expression of what they believe God is speaking to them in the ways that God had made them to express him in the beauty of all things. The same thing happened in Europe, the same thing. But what has happened is that men have sought to privilege themselves over others and have used their religion to do so as well, as if God cannot speak to you. He can only speak to me. That is also part of when you look at the religion too, I mean, think about it. The inspiration only happened, and okay, fine. The inspiration happened, and then certain men came together and put it together and left out others that does not speak to their perspective and understanding. But God, and I said to me, God, what God might be telling you something for you, not necessarily for other people. But man has sought to universalize it for his own benefit. These are part of the consideration that we have to have. We have to think about these things. So these are but what we have, but the thing is, I'm saying to you, we are very ethnocentric in our own understanding of all things. We have become ethnocentric. Anyway, as I wrap up the class today, if you want to do that study, that's fine. That's great. If you can go there, you guys can have these discussions in your the church, in your communities, but I'm quite sure it's going to be heated. I'm hoping that we can finish this research. We can publish our findings, and then give it to the Jamaican government, and then we can all have an open discussion about it properly. The Jamaican government, excuse me, cannot have an open discussion about Obeah without doing it properly, without putting it into proper prayer. It has to be done properly. I mean, talk about the Afrocentric paradigm, utilizing the Afrocentric. You cannot use Europe-centric tropes to do it, because we will bias our European side over. Okay, we are going to bias that side of ourselves. Okay. Anyways, but we will end class today. This was a good class. Thank you so much. Next week, what we will do is I wanted to talk about Frantz Fanon. I talked about him a little bit, but he wrote the book Wretched of the Earth. And in the book, he talks about, I want to talk about what happened in the 1960s and the 70s and the 80s. That's where I'm at right now, because I want you to watch the film Life and Death. Very important to watch the film Life and Death. Before you do your presentation next week, we will watch the film Life and Death. You have to watch it. It's a very important part of this class, Life and Death, because it looks at how Jamaica has been transformed economically, the socioeconomic transformation of Jamaica, making Jamaica into a dependent capitalist country, the Caribbean, from the 1960s. A book written by Stephanie Black, I believe the book was. No, the book was written by Stephanie Black, and the film is produced by Jamaica Kincaid, or is the other way around? My brain, okay, one of those. But we are going to have that film next week. I remember. I think I'm always confusing the two. I think it was Stephanie Black who did the film Life and Death. Stephanie Black, right? And actually, I spoke with Stephanie Black myself. Me and Stephanie Black got into it. The lady who produced the film, who did the film Life and Death, we got into it because I shared the video to the class and then made it available, and she was upset that I made it available. So now it's only private and it's available to just you students. So next week I'll have a private viewing of the film Life and Death, and it's based on a book written by Jamaica Kincaid about how structural adjustment has helped to deepen the economic realities of, what's the name of that country? Trying to remember the name of the country. Chantel, you remember the country? I can't remember the country.
What country, sir?
The Life and Death is based a small place.
I think
the book is called A Small Place. Yes. And it's based on it's from what country? Jamaica. What country was it again?
Something was I think Trinidad. No.
No. A small country. My brain is not here. My brain is not here today. It's Life and Death is based on Antigua and Barbuda. I was gonna Google it just now, and it popped up in my head. There we go. Antigua and Barbuda. I'm gonna ask the question according to the film Life and Death. So next week I will ask the question according to the film Life and Death. Who is to be blamed for Jamaica's slow development and dependency? A. Jamaica government. B. IMF and the World Bank. C. Colonialism and Europe. D. NAFTA, WTO, and USA. Next week lecture, we will explore cinema and globalization by reviewing and exploring the film Life and Death by Stephanie Black, a Jamaican feminist who has made significant contributions to post-colonial thought. They can't believe it. I thought I had it here somewhere. It's still not here. Absolutely ridiculous. So that's for next week. Any questions before we wrap up, guys?
Yes, sir. My hand is up.
Go ahead.
It's regarding the exam. I know you made mention that you wrote the exam last night. Would you mind sharing the structure of the exam? What we should expect?
I'll share it next week with you.
Ah, sir.
Because I want you guys to focus on your group presentations for next week, where you're going to talk about some very important figures in the Caribbean and the countries and stuff. I wanted to preface what you were going to do with my own presentation. So hopefully I have time to do that. But we're going to do Life and Death first before you do your presentation. It's going to be for an hour and a half. The film is for an hour and a half. And then we will only have time to do, we will only have time to do 2 group presentations next week. Okay, so we'll do Life and Death and the film Life and Death and 2 group presentations. In fact, maybe not even do 2, we may only do 1, because usually anytime I show the film Life and Death, the students usually have a lot of it's intense. When you watch the film, the students are usually the class takes forever to end. So, but hopefully we can watch the film Life and Death, and then we go straight into the group presentation. Which group will present first, Chantel?
Sir, group 1 and group 2 can present. Our presents were already, I think, but we can go in some of the other. So we can do group 1 and group 2, and then go down to 6. The group 1, group 2, to Friday, the another week, 3 and 4, and so on.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. So there's one thing I'm trying to find before you guys go.
Sir, I have a question, if I may go.
Yeah.
The presentation, is it a Word document and a PowerPoint presentation, or just a presentation itself?
Yeah, I would love it. I would love for it to be PowerPoint, but you know what? I told you at the beginning, you guys get to do. You have the power to do. Be creative. Let me see what you have to offer. Let me see what you have to present. I gave this assignment for the first time last year, and the students took it to another level. I was absolutely blown away. I was absolutely impressed. Let me see what you guys will do. Okay.
Okay, sir.
All right. Jamaica Kincaid is a novelist and an essayist. Just so you know, she wrote the book A Small Place. The book is about Antigua, okay, and how structural adjustment has helped to ravish the country and made it into a dependent capitalist country. She wrote the book about Antigua, and then Stephanie Black turned the book into a film, called it Life and Death, based it on Jamaica. It's a docu-film about Jamaica, which is quite interesting. How Jamaica Kincaid can write a book about Antigua, and Stephanie can do a film about Jamaica based on that same book, but she don't talk about the place Kincaid. She don't talk about the place Antigua. She talks about the place. Jamaica and what happens in Jamaica. It is quite interesting. Now the question is, how isn't that interesting? It shows how the dynamics are similar within the Caribbean. How a book about Jamaica, a small place, about Antigua, a small place, became a film. A book about Antigua became a film about Jamaica. Isn't that interesting, guys? We're going to watch that next week. So next week we hope to have class early. I don't have an appointment at 3 o'clock next week, so I will be able to do my. I don't have a 3 o'clock appointment, so we are fine. So 3 o'clock. Sorry.
So remind that it's 4 o'clock and over 3 o'clock.
Yes, I have several meetings next week, though. Don't I, Chantel? There's a lot happening next week. My calendar is completely booked out. Meet with me later. We need to have a meeting, okay, Chantel? I have a lot of meet. I have a lot. Okay, guys. Thank you guys so much. No, don't go because we started late. I wanted to share an article before you guys go. The Neoliberal. Don't go. I'm going to share an article that I wrote. No, not an article. It's something very important. It's called, I want to know, what do you guys think about an article I wrote. It's called The Caribbean Can Learn from Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso. I'm going to share my screen right now, real quick. Here we go. Share. This is the article. The Caribbean can learn from Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso. This is the gentleman. The Caribbean must begin a new history of man, as tabula rasas. That's according to Fanon in Wretched of the Earth. Bob Marley said, "I don't look to the east or the west. I look to the I." Was it Who Shot the Sheriff or what was it? No. Yeah, Who Shot the Sheriff? Caribbean governments and CARICOM had looked to the west, the US and the UK, IMF, World Bank, so on. Now they're looking to the east, China, without developing interdependence or independence, without developing independence or interdependence. Still have not learned how to become sacrificially independent. According to an article published via Facebook by Jay Silas, 2 years of President Ibrahim Traore after he took over the stewardship of the country, this is his report sheet for the aforementioned period. 1. Burkina Faso's GDP grew. GDP means gross domestic product, grew from approximately 18.8 billion to 22.1 billion. 2. He has rejected loans from the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. I talk about that in the book, Neoliberalism. And hopefully I get a chance to talk about it. And the World Bank. He said Africa doesn't need the World Bank, the IMF, Europe, America, by extension, China. He reduced the salaries of ministers and parliamentarians by 30% and increased the salaries of civil servants by 50%. He paid off Burkina Faso's local debt. You can come, debt. 5. He established 2 tomato processing plants, the first ever in Burkina Faso. In 2023, he inaugurated a state-of-the-art gold mine to enhance local processing capabilities. 7. He stopped the export of unrefined Burkina Faso gold to Europe. 8. He built Burkina Faso's second cotton processing plant. Previously, the country had only one. 9. He opened the first ever national support center of artisanal cotton processing to assist local cotton farmers. He banned the wearing of British legal wigs and gowns in local courts and introduced traditional Burkinabe attire. Do we still have wigs in Jamaican courts or Caribbean courts? He prioritized agriculture by distributing over 40 tractors, 239 tillers, 710 motor pumps, 714 motorcycles to boost production and support rural stakeholders. He provided access to improved seeds and other farm inputs to maximize agricultural output. Tomato production in Burkina Faso increased from 315 metric tons in 2022 to 360,000 metric tons in 2024. Millet production rose from 907,000 metric tons in 2022 to 1.1 million metric tons. Rice production increased He banned French military operations in Burkina Faso. He banned French media. He expelled French troops. His government is constructing new roads, widening existing ones, and upgrading gravel roads to paved surfaces. Guys, I don't know if he's doing that with loans from the IMF, the World Bank. He's doing it. The country's doing it. Do you think that Jamaica and the Caribbean have the resources to do it? To be independent or interdependent with the other Caribbean countries? Caribbean, can we rely on each other without loans and without investment tied to conditions? Because the investment that China give us, it's tied to conditions. Can we afford that? We see what that looked like. Can we do that again? All right, guys. Thank you so much for making it class. Next week, we will watch Life and Death, and we will learn from history. You're going to be blown away. And then in the first presentation. Go ahead. Yes.
We might have presentations as well.
Who?
The presentations as well for next week.
Next week, Group 1 will present.
Sir, excuse me.
Yes.
I need some clarification as it regards to the assignments. On the Moodle platform, it states that the group assignment is due in April. Submissions begin in April, and we're to present. So is it that we're presenting before we submit the actual document?
Well, I mean, it'd be great if I'm giving you, I mean, if you're gonna present using PowerPoint presentation, then it would be great. You can send it to me, but if it's not ready fully, that's fine. You will present. Yes, you will present without giving me the final document.
Okay. Another thing I wanted to clarify, the midterm paper that's due today, I went through it a week before last. I noticed it's similar to the reflection papers that I would have completed before. That's the chapter 1 of your book, and the preface, critical thinking question is also in it. So is it that we're to do this paper and still include what we would have done from those reflection papers?
What was the midterm paper?
The midterm paper I'm seeing on here. Let me just
hold on. Let me check what you're referring to. What was the midterm paper?
Okay.
What was the midterm paper, Chantel, that we gave them to do?
Sir, there was some question that I was supposed to answer, something like a quiz formatting.
Okay, I'm looking at it now. Interviewing African thought. Welcome. Course library, course outline, reflection paper, coursework 1. Question: is there a paradigm? That was the first one. How to write reflection paper? That's my midterm. Or midterm assignment due March 14th. I mean, read Neoliberalism Book 1, Preface Chapter 1, and Norman Gervin, The Caribbean Reader, and watch the lecture on Urban Indian Heritage Society and answer the following questions. What is the Caribbean and who determines this? What is what is critical thinking? I mean, oh wait, I'm not understanding the question. After reading this, I'm not understanding the question.
All right, so the question, we would have gotten some questions that Chantel would have posted, right?
Oh, okay, I see what you mean.
So that's where the confusion lies for
me.
I
posted this.
Okay.
I posted this. This is the coursework and assignment. Yes, please complete the midterm and submit it. And submit this. This is due. It's there. It says midterm due by March 14. Submit this.
Right, but we have done reflection papers that would have covered the chapter 1 of your book.
That means you are ahead of the game.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that
that's
means
what
you.
I wanted to
Oh
clarify.
yeah, man. Okay.
Thank
I got.
you.
Yeah, man. Sorry about that.
Thank
Okay,
you.
sorry for the confusion. I get it. I understand what you're saying and where the confusion lies. Yes, because you had had to read it again. So you're saying that probably it seemed like you're doing the same thing in terms of reading the Neoliberals in book one and answering the question, but reading book one should have been done a long time ago, which should have prepared you for this. So it was just to help you to knowing that you have to do this. Okay. So now it's easy for you to finish this. So what is the Caribbean? Who determines this? What is socioeconomic context of the Caribbean? Where is the Caribbean? What is critical? So this is the midterm assignment. The presentation is for the final assignment. Sorry, the final group. The group work presentation is the final assignment that you have to do for this class, and then you submit the paper or the submit the group work presentation. When you present the end, you have until April to submit the group work presentation. Yeah, and then I'm using that in lieu of your final as your final essay paper. They're giving you a final essay paper, the group work presentation, and the group work and the paper that you and the work the presentation. You submit the presentation to me as well. That would be that's all I need. I don't need a final essay paper or anything like that. All I need is the group work. Okay. So yeah. So thank you so much. The midterm, this is due, but the reflection, I asked you to write a reflection on neoliberalism and chapter 1 of the intro. Yes, that is still due. And so right now, the only thing that you have to do, you have to reflection paper 1 was due. The midterm is due. And of course, the introduction to neoliberalism, the introduction and the preface to neoliberalism is due. I think that's all you guys, and that's all you guys have to do right now. Okay.
Sir, one
Yeah.
second. I'm a little confused. You
Mm-hmm.
said a reflection, which is remember that the neoliberalism was
Mm-hmm.
supposed to read the preface and chapter 1 and write a reflection on that.
Yes.
Then the midterm quiz, and then you said
Uh-huh.
another reflection. What is the other reflection?
The reflection paper 1, is there a paradigm to Caribbean thought? You guys already did that. You all did that. You guys
That's
already.
the Amamazama one?
Yeah, you guys all did that already.
Okay, so we only have 2 papers remaining then.
Yeah,
The
I
quiz
don't.
that
Yes,
is online and the
right,
neoliberalism.
right. Some of it. Okay, I mean, if you have, as I said to you, the class reflections is stuff for you guys it's to help you guys. Okay, it's to help you
Okay.
guys. And I said to you, but what is due for this class that's graded is the reflection paper 1, the midterm, the group work, and of course the introduction to neoliberalism reflection. That's all I need.
Okay,
That's
great.
all
And
I
just
need.
to reiterate, you
Yeah.
have extended technically 2 week for the midterm, which we should submit by
Yes.
the end of
Yes.
this month.
Yes,
Okay,
two
thank you.
weeks. Give you 2 weeks for that. All right. And if you guys have any problems and need extra time, send Chantel and myself a side message or give me a call. We can work something out. Okay. Cool. How that sound?
Sir, am I getting you clear? The midterm is not supposed to be done tonight because I already upload. I'm wondering. That was what you
Well,
said?
listen, I need it to be done tonight, but some of you are saying that you need 2 weeks extension. Yes? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, sir. That was what we agreed on at the
All right,
start of class.
tell you what, it's due tonight. However, if you need an extension, why don't you send me a message? Okay. And if you need a
Okay.
2 week extension, send me a message and we will talk about that. Okay. But it's due tonight. If you send that to me, I think the system automatically grades it or you get a grade. Some students are getting a grade. If you submit stuff on Moodle, the grade generates once you complete that. Okay.
Sir, Mr. McKenzie,
Yes.
the young lady that had asked about it, I don't think she's still on when you had said there would be an extension.
Oh.
So it's going to be confusing for them. So I don't think you should change it now from what you had responded to
No,
her.
what I'm saying, okay, fine, I agree. The deadline is today. I didn't realize it was, but Chantel had reminded me. Today is the deadline. Yes, Chantel was right. Chantel Burton was right. She's on top of everything. Yeah, sometimes you have to
Yes.
follow her, really, you know. She knows what's going on.
But you had given an extension.
But did I give an extension, Chantel? I just
Yes,
mentioned
sir.
it.
Hold on, Julian. Chantel was not at last week's class when you
So last
mentioned the
week.
extension, sir.
Okay,
But
okay.
this was said in last week's class.
All right, good. Thank you. But you're the head of the class, Chantel. You're the wait, man,
Total. Sir,
you know, yeah.
but I've already started submitting already. Even
That's
before the
fine. If
14th.
and that's good. I mean, you're ahead of the game. That means you don't have to worry about that. You know what I mean? The people who are unable to submit today, fine. If you need an extension, I am giving them 2 weeks extension. If you have already finished and submitted, great. Okay. If you need a 2 weeks extension, I will give a 2 weeks extension. Okay. I'm giving a 2 weeks extension for people who are unable to
Thank you, sir.
apply today. If you submitted it already, that's fine. You're ahead of the game. I will mark your paper. You get the grade. But if people are unable to, if for some reason have need an extension, your professor is, I'm sorry, your professor is a gracious professor. I'm going to give you a deadline, but I will also give you an extension. That's who I am. Go ahead. Who is next?
Um, I said, I hear you said that you are graded the paper.
A testimony. Chantel had a testimony. Chantel, what's your testimony?
Sir. All right. So good night again, everyone. All right. So I had registered to do my master's in the US at a school in MIU City University. I want to do my school in hybrid, which should be in the US. I had gotten a small scholarship of 26% then. But then going and everything, the requirements, everything was completed, registration, enrollment, everything. But then there was one glitch where I had to either have a certain amount of cash in my account or get an affidavit of support. So that was my biggest challenge to get that, because persons are, I guess, because of the whole Donald Trump thing over in the US, persons are really skeptical about even supporting somebody over to come for school over there. And I was like, God, I don't know, do I not do this course or not, or do I not do my master's right now, or whatever the case is. So I said, you know what, I'm going to do the master's same, but I'm going to try ask the school if I can do the master's online. So I emailed them, and they responded that I can do it online, and I got a 50% scholarship. So instead of 26%, and I got 50% scholarship, and yeah, and it's, so it's basically that has been really good. So that's my testimony basically. So I've been my
Congratulations.
master's online. Thank you, Chantal.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Congratulations,
Yes,
Sherry.
yes, yes. And
Congratulations to God be all the glory.
I've been
Thank
praying
you.
for her and I've been hearing the story. So we've been praying. And if you guys, Lord God, I pray that the other students will experience blessings in their lives, more ways, in ways that they never imagined or never thought of. I pray, Lord, that you'll inspire them and you will allow them to inspire others. I pray, God, that you will grant them your favor. And I pray, oh God, that you open up our minds and our understanding. Thank you for what we are learning and what we are being exposed to, and help us never to be puffed up with knowledge, but to use it to humble ourselves and sometimes it creates confusion, sometimes it's a challenge. I pray, Lord God, it will make us stronger as we know the power of God. God is more than that we can ever thought or imagine. That's the God we serve, more than we can ever thought or imagine. And he uses the foolish things and the simple things to confound the wise. Lord God, we don't understand how people find inspirational and beauty, the things that they find inspirational and beautiful, maybe be driven by our own ethnocentrism. May you help us, may you remove ethnocentrism from from us and help us to be open and affirming. Help us to be led by the Spirit, not by flesh or a history that have been to usurp, and to also to dig and to create, to usurp men for others' goods. I pray, Lord, that you bless those who are dealing with financial issues, physical issues. They could be dealing issues in their marriage, in children. Lord God, whatever the issue is, we pray for your help. We believe that you are a God that has come and touched the lives of men, and men have formulated their own opinions about what that God looks like. But what is important to me is what men have said about God, that who has intervened in their lives to make their lives better, so that they can promote and exemplify the glory and the beauty of God, that which is beyond us, the ultimate. Help us to, Lord, exemplify you, the beauty of God, the love of God. The half has not been told. We don't know everything, but we pray. Help us to be humbled by what we know, and help us to be open to the move of God. These are the mercies we ask in the name of God. And we say Jesus, because it is that name that was given to us by those who have shared with us salvation. But we utilize the name of God because it represents a name that human beings have come to associate with healing, to associate with sacrifice, to associate with love. And the Rastafarians believe that Jesus is in the person of Rastafari. But there is no flesh that can indignify the indomitability and the divinity of God. We use these human tropes to make sense of the divine, but yet you are beyond them. Will you forgive us and help us always to serve you, that which promotes love and beauty and dignity? May we cherish each other. May we embrace one another. And may we advocate for the most vulnerable in society.
Amen.
God bless you all.
Amen.
Yeah, man, be safe.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Have a great night, sir.
Yeah, man.